Hello everyone and welcome to a new sprint review from the Eclipse JKube team. Regarding JKube, we've been working on the features for version 1.9. We're concentrating on improving the user experience. Today, we'll show an example of how we've improved it by providing a single configuration property for the image pull policy. For the Kubernetes client, we finally released version 6, which is a very big milestone for the project. We're actively working on the promotion of both projects and publishing regular blog posts describing the new features.
Hello everyone, this is Rohan from Eclipse JKube team. Today I'll be showcasing the new jkube.imagePullPolicy property we added in Eclipse JKube plugins. So right now, in order to configure the image pull policy in generated controller resources, there are multiple ways depending on how we are using the plugin. If it's getting used in zero configuration mode, there is a property specific to an enricher that you can provide to write the pull policy. If it's getting used with resource fragments, there is another property to override pull policy since a different enricher is activated in that mode. And there is plugins configuration that can be either XML or Groovy DSL configuration. And there is an image pull policy field there. You can provide that as well to override the default image pull policy. So right now this was getting a bit confusing for the end user, and we felt the need for providing a single property to override the image pull policy no matter how it's getting used. So we have added this new jkube.imagePullPolicy property, and we have deprecated the other two properties that we had that were specific to enrichers. So let's take a look into that. I'll be going to my demo project. So I have opened this in my terminal. So it's a very basic Spring Boot application, and the JKube plugins are already added here. So first, in order to generate Kubernetes resources, I just run the mvn-k-test resource goal, and it should generate resources for me. And if I try to check the generated resources, I should be able to see the image pull policy. This is the default if not present opinionated image pull policy. So if I go back and if I want to configure this, I can configure this via the default controller enricher configuration. So let me specify this by property. So I have modified I'm overriding the default pull policy to always. Okay, so let me check the generated resource. Okay, so this has been changed to always as expected. So this works in zero configuration mode, but let's try to add a fragment. So I have this deployment fragment in the fragments directory. So let's try to use this and try to generate the resources again. So I'll run the same goal, but with the jkube.resource directory equals fragments and the same image pull policy property that we used earlier. Okay. Alright, so let's check the generated resource. So we can see that the this time we got the content from the fragment, but instead of the image pull policy we specified, it is using the default one. So we need to use the other property that was mentioned in the slide. So it should be mvn-k-test resource fragments, and we'll use the second property because the first property doesn't work. Enricher.jkube controller from configuration pull policy equals always. Okay, let's check the generated resource, and yeah, now it's back to what we expected. So image pull policy is set as expected. So we see that depending on the way we are using these, we have to specify two different properties. So let's take a look into the jkube.imagePullPolicy property we added and try to run that in both modes. So first let's try the zero configuration mode. jkube.imagePullPolicy equals always. Let's check the generated resource. Okay, it's as expected. Let's try to run the same goal but with fragments. jkube.resource directory equals fragments and jkube.imagePullPolicy equals always. Let's check the generated directory and let's load this, and yeah, this time also it's as expected. jkube.imagePullPolicy property also has more precedence over the fragments. So let's say you have this fragment where you, along with replicas, we also want to override the image pull policy. So we can also override this using the property. So let's try to see this in action. And we get this resource jkube.resource directory fragments and image per policy equals always. Let's check the generated resource. So yeah, it's as what we specified in the pull policy property. So this concludes the demo. Thanks a lot for watching.